The last time I went to Walmart, two things happened. I scared an old man while wearing a wig, and I noticed that they have their own gaming brand of peripherals called Blackweb for some reason. So I decided to buy an entire Walmart gaming setup to see how it holds up. But before we get into that, it's time for today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by the Elgato Wave 3 USB microphone, which I'm actually using to record this audio. This is what it sounds like when I provocatively whisper into the microphone. The microphone uses a premium condenser capsule that picks up audio in a cardioid polar pattern. The Elgato Wave 3 also has a physical volume gain knob right on the front of the microphone, making it really easy to adjust your levels on the fly. The Elgato Wave 3 also has a capacitive mute button right on the top of the microphone so that you can shout at your neighbors midstream without getting banned on Twitch. So considering the Wave 3's noob-friendly plug-and-play functionality mixed with its excellent audio quality, this is an amazing option for anybody who wants to step up their audio game. Thank you very much, Elgato Wave 3, for sponsoring today's video. As is tradition with my channel, let's do a little bit of a hands-on before we actually start gaming with this stuff. Starting off with the peripheral kit that comes with a keyboard, mouse, mousepad, and a headset. This time it was all locked up, so hopefully no one stole the mouse out of this one like we had with the Razer kit before. Now this kit cost 100 Canadian dollars, which is it's about 120 rubles if I'm not mistaken, and they have a little glory hole on the front, which is always exciting. You can try out the key feel in the shop if you want to. Okay, so we've got the keyboard on top. Wow, it's actually really heavy. It's relatively solid actually, and it's much heavier than I was expecting. It is actually a full keyboard that does also have some macro keys on the side, so that's nice. That's a good addition. That is not an amazing feeling membrane keyboard, but I do actually think that it's nicer for typing than the Razer kit keyboard was. It also has a braided cable on it, which it's a reasonably nice braided cable. And then on the back, we have the little footies of various heights. Wow, this actually feels like a reasonable keyboard that won't try and destabilize Uganda for oil profit. So that's a big plus in my book. Let's move on to the next bit of peripheral. We should try out the mouse and the mouse pad. This is quite a comfortable mouse. More comfortable for my hand than that the Logitech G502 is. It looks a little bit funky with that divot in it. It's not made out of particularly high quality plastic, but if it's got a reasonable sensor in it, this may actually be a usable gaming mouse, which is pretty cool. The clicks aren't fantastic, but they feel solid enough. And then we've got a nice braided cable. We've got some additional buttons on the side. An awful scroll wheel. I really don't like the scroll wheel. It's very cheap feeling, but again, it'll all get the job done. Also need to check out the mouse pad, which is not in a deceptively massive box like last time. It's a mouse pad. It feels fine. It's actually got this like rubber grip on the base so that it doesn't move. Wow, it actually really sticks down. This is a bit of a challenge for my baboon brain to get to get the cable out. There we go. Ooh, that feels like Blockbuster VHS tape cover plastic. That is, ooh, yeah, this I think is definitely the weak part so far, just in terms of like build quality. You do have extensions on the side, and then the cable is reasonable. It is that kind of standard budget peripheral braided cable, but then you also have an inline mic toggle, which is quite nice, and you actually have a volume wheel as well. Again, all of these switches don't feel great, but it's nice that they're there. Okay, and then finally at the end of it, we have these little jacks so that you can actually have them individual, or you can use them as a single TRRS connector, which would work for if you want to use it with like a controller or whatever. This is going to get uncomfortable quite quickly, but I will game with it for a while, so I'll give you an indication of how it holds up long term. And then finally, we have our on monitor. Now this is a 22-inch 1080p monitor that has a 60 Hz refresh rate, and that's pretty much the only specs that they give you for this monitor. For 160 Canadian dollars, that's not a great price for what it is. They do have other versions for like $20 more. You can get a 24-inch 165 Hz refresh rate version. Unfortunately, it's not in stock anywhere. This was the only one that any Walmart has available, it seems. Look at how cute and tiny the little power brick is. It does also seem like the cable's quite short. And here we have the base of the stand. Ooh. There is our on monitor. Ooh. And then on the back of the monitor, we have a VESA mount. So that's very useful. I'm actually really surprised to see that, because a lot of like budget HP monitors, for example, don't have these. And that's really irritating. You have to buy like another adapter. But then other than that, down here, we have an HDMI port and a Mesozoic period port, which is not very promising, having one of those on a monitor in 2021, but it's okay. So yeah, there's nothing else really to talk about here other than that it is a little monitor. So with that, I'm gonna put all this stuff together and we're gonna do some gaming on our Walmart setup. Starting off with the mouse and the keyboard, because those are the two things I have the least to say about. The keyboard is perfectly usable, it's quite mushy and it's not the greatest typing experience, but it's not terrible. It also has a couple of nice features. You've got a backlight toggle button. The backlight is just green, there's no RGB, but it's bright enough that you can see it, so that's nice. And the other good feature is that it's got a Windows key lock button, which is amazing. I wish more keyboards had that. Moving over to the mouse, it's also okay. The sensor is not great, but it's not the worst thing ever. And the only real complaint I have with that mouse is the fact that the cable it's just got a life of its own, and you're gonna have to spend some time to straighten it out. Otherwise it bumps on stuff and it gets really distracting. But other than that, the mouse is a top tier e-waste mouse. Neither of these peripherals are gonna set your world on fire, but at the same time, they won't flare up your hemorrhoids. And that is about what you want from a starter peripheral set. So good job, Walmart. Now moving over to the monitor, it is actually an impressively mixed bag. When I did the image quality tests, the positives were that it has quite a wide color space coverage. It covers 94% of the sRGB color space, and if you calibrate it, it goes up to 98%. It's also got decent panel uniformity, and its color accuracy is pretty good. It's got an average delta E of 2.4, which like 10 years ago, you had to spend like $1,000 for a monitor with an average delta E of 2, so that's pretty impressive. Now moving over to the negatives, it does have a comically bad contrast ratio. Like double its contrast ratio would be a terrible result, which I actually think is kind of impressive in a bit of a stupid way. But its contrast ratio figure is 240:1, which is the worst I've ever seen. And you can really tell while using the monitor while gaming, especially darker games. It doesn't really have black levels more than it has like gray levels. Everything looks very flat and gray. On the note of the gaming experience with this monitor, it's not very good. Although that's not surprising because it's not a gaming monitor. Yeah, it's 60 Hz refresh rate, and the fact that it's really small. You know, in a game like Escape from Tarkov, where long-range visibility is really important, like you need to see the enemy player before they see you so that you can win an engagement. That's difficult on this monitor because everything's so small. And then the final terrible thing about the monitor is its ergonomics, in that the combination of the small size of the monitor and its very low stand means that you have to crane over looking at it. And unless you put it on a high box to bring it up to eye level, you're gonna turn into the Hunchback of Notre Dame using this thing. Although a positive note is that it does have a VESA mount on it, so you can replace the stand quite easily. So in terms of the monitor, I am very sad that I couldn't get the high refresh rate version, which I think you should definitely get if you're going to be gaming on it, because it's barely more expensive than this one, and it's bigger, and it looks like it's a much better monitor. I'll see if I can end up finding one, and then I may do a video on it if it's interesting enough. But with that, we have to finally talk about the Walmart headset, which actually makes a really interesting point of comparison to the Razer Kraken X Lite headset, because those two headphones have like a diametrically opposed sound signature. It's kind of crazy. Where the Razer Kraken X Lite has very anemic bass and a highly accentuated tinny treble profile that kind of leads to a headphone user experience similar to being attacked by an ice pick. The Walmart headset has quite strong bass, but like no treble response at all. It sounds a little bit like somebody EQ'd -9 dB in the treble. Like it's a very dull sounding headset. Now, its complete lack of treble is not its only problem. It does sound very congested. And what I mean by that is if you're in a game and you're sitting on a map and off in the distance, somebody shoots a gun a couple of times, and off on the other side, there's a person walking. You can differentiate those two things. But if there's more going on, like there's a gunfight between 3 people going ham off in the distance, and in the middle distance there's a person shooting a gun, and then close to you there's someone walking, that all just smears into a massive sound that you can't differentiate at all, which makes this headset terrible for games that are very dependent on audio cues, things like Escape from Tarkov. Whereas the Kraken X Lite doesn't have that problem. It is much better at kind of differentiating between multiple things happening on the same side. So for FPS games, the Kraken X Lite is much better. Although, for everything else, like media consumption or playing MOBAs and whatever, I actually prefer the sound signature of the Walmart headset. Even though it's technically worse in my opinion, I would take a technically worse muted sounding headset over having my eardrums being attacked with a shiv every time I listen to anything any day of the week. And this is a quick audio sample of the microphone in the Walmart headset, which aside from the pretty bad hissing in the background, is actually well intelligible. This is what the microphone sounds like if I'm talking normally. So at the end of the day, the Walmart branded budget gaming setup's gaming performance was let down a little bit by the monitor, but that makes sense. It's less a gaming monitor and more a Facebooking monitor. But other than that, the actual peripheral set was decent. You know, it's not going to lead to an increase in violent crime in your local area, which that's kind of what you want from a budget starter peripheral set. So yeah, that's kind of good job, Walmart. Well done. And with that, it brings me to the end of the video. If you want to support the channel and get some awesome Christmas presents at the same time, check out the merch store linked in the description below, where we have some awesome water bottles and mouse pads and t-shirts and all kinds of cool stuff. And yeah, until the next video, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.